Hi, this is David at Mash IT, and for tonight's full review, we're going to be looking at the ROG Zephyrus G14 14-inch gaming laptop. Now, the reason we wanted to get this one in for a review is we've had so many 15-inch and 17-inch laptops that we wanted to have something a little bit different. So firstly, this is our first Ryzen-based laptop of the 5000 series, so we're looking forward to looking at that. It's also our first 14-inch gaming laptop that we've done on the channel. And when I open the box, it is a lovely compact little unit. You can see you just easily pick it up with one hand. It's got a nice solid heft to it. It's a really nice solid little unit. This is the 5800HS 8-core CPU with a RTX 3060 graphics card. So this isn't the highest end, this is more like a mid-spec unit. But what did surprise me, we've got the grey and it's actually come with the Armoury Matrix LED display. So we will have a look at that further on in the review as well. But firstly, let's have a quick look around the laptop, look at the ports, and then we'll open it up. So on the left-hand side of the laptop, we've got the speaker grille, power supply, the HDMI 2 port, we have the USB-C port that can output display, and also is capable of power delivery for up to 100 watts, and we have a headset jack. And on the right-hand side of the machine, we have got two USB 3 ports, and another USB-C, and at the very rear of the laptop, we've got a Kensington lock slot. So we've talked about the location of the ports, but one thing I did want to mention is that I'm not overly keen on with this design. I don't like the fact that you have both the USB ports on the right side. I much prefer if they'd split them and put USB on the left and a USB on the right. And the reason that is, whenever I'm sort of playing a game on a laptop, if I've got a wired mouse, I'll always plug it in on the left-hand side and sort of put the cable around the back. If you've got a wired mouse, I'm just going to demonstrate, and you're plugging it in on this side of the laptop, you can see you've obviously got the cable and the sort of the ports sticking out, and I'd much prefer to have it over here. And like, you know, my other sort of Razors or Alienware laptops, I will always either have it plugged in over here. Now, if you've got a wireless mouse with a wireless dongle, that's not going to bother you. But if you've also got a USB hard drive, that's also going to be sticking out of this side as well, where you're going to be sort of, you know, using your mouse. And I just think, you know, it's just so much nicer with plenty of space to put them on both sides. Also, I'm guessing that this is because it's got the vents at the side as well, and it is only a 14-inch. The ports do seem quite close to the front for my liking. So you've got all these cables sticking out the sort of the front of the machine. But I guess, you know, being a 14-inch laptop, I can't really complain too much. I'm used to using sort of hefty, large 17-inch gaming laptops. The front of the laptop, there is nothing. And at the rear of the laptop, all we've got are the vents and a Zephyrus logo. And with regards to the actual branding, it's really quite minimalist. It's quite nice. You could take this into the office if you turn off the Armoury Matrix display. But we've got a little ROG logo and Republic of Gamers. It doesn't light up. It's quite nice. It's not in your face like other Razer blades and other gaming laptops. Now on the bottom of the laptop, we've got two downward firing speakers, but we do also have two upward firing as well, so the speakers do sound pretty good. And we've got some vents for the fans. They've not gone overly aggressive with the venting, but the heat so far has been quite restrained, so I don't think that's a problem. But you know, if you're used to using Alienwares or other, you know, gaming laptops, the actual vent holes are not that big on this machine. Right, so let's open it up. I'm going to open it up from the side first. I did this in our unboxing, but I'm going to do it again for anyone that didn't watch that video. It's one hand opening, but there's no notch for you to get your finger in, which is a bit of a shame. So, but once you do locate it and lift it up, you can easily lift it up with one finger, which is quite nice. And as you do, you can see it elevates the rear of the laptop, giving you some nice airflow for the laptop itself. Now, for years, I've always raised the back end of my laptops with a few coasters. So now, with this sort of laptop, you don't even need to do that because it does it for you with the actual display hinge. Bring it round, you can take a look at it. So we've got a nice, solid construction on this laptop. Feels very nice. We've got two upward firing speakers here and a glass trackpad. The trackpad, although not the largest, being a 14-inch laptop, is very responsive. You glide nicely on it and the gestures work well. Now, I've been using this laptop heavily for the last couple of days. I've been really impressed with the keyboard. It's got a white backlight with 3 stages, and it's been really useful with the grey keyboard. If you buy the silver or the white G15 or G14, you're going to find there's a bit of a problem where you've got obviously silver or white keys with a white backlight. It makes it very difficult to actually read them. So I've definitely chosen grey because I want the contrast of the grey or black keys with the white backlight. And this lights up the keyboard very nicely. With the keyboard backlight, You've obviously got hotkeys to adjust it. It's quite nicely lit up. All the sort of the secondary symbols are lit. And you've also got an aura button here, so you can press function and hit aura, and you can actually change the effects on the keyboard on the fly, which is quite nice. The keyboard layout is very good. You've got smaller cursor keys, which some people maybe not be so keen on, but at least they are away from the actual main bulk of the keyboard, which makes them easy to find, so I quite like that. And obviously the function keys at the top are not quite as tall as the rest of the keys, but for the amount that I use function keys, this didn't bother me at all in my use. But the actual keyboard itself has a good layout and is very tactile to use, so I've been enjoying typing here. Also at the very top of the keyboard, we've got some special keys for volume and mute, and lastly the Armoury crate button, which takes you into their system software to adjust the actual profiles. And then to the right, we've just got a couple of LEDs. So you can see that we've got the power LED, we've got the charging LED, and we've got the hard disk access LED. It's quite old school, but I do still like having these. I don't know why most manufacturers have taken them away. And on the far right, we've got the power button. Now with this design, it does vent the heat up onto the actual screen, so very much like a MacBook, but the actual hinge lifts the screen away from this quite a way, so it's got quite a gap, and I haven't noticed any problems doing that. And you do have this quite a large chin and some sort of reasonable sized bezels around the screen for a 14-inch laptop. But when you're using it, it does still feel very compact, being a 14-inch laptop. Now the bezels are quite large. There's certainly no infinity bezels like you've got on the XPS range. It's still a nice compact 14-inch even with these bezels. The screen itself is a 1080p 144Hz panel. Now it's quite a nice crisp display. Quite enjoyed using it, but I have noticed a little bit of ghosting on my testing so far. It's not the worst panel I've ever used, but having used some 300Hz or 240Hz panels in some of the recent Alienwares and Razer blades, you can definitely see where they've obviously saved a little bit of money on this screen. Also could be the fact that I don't suppose there's that many 14-inch high refresh panels to choose from either. But the panel's made by Sharp, and other than the fact there's a little bit of ghosting, it is a nice panel still. And just lastly, whilst we're rounding out the package, you'll notice at the top, there's no webcam. This could be a killer for some people. It doesn't bother me, because if I've got a gaming laptop, I'm not usually that bothered. I so rarely use a webcam these days, and if I do, I'd probably put a decent external webcam on. But it is a shame. This isn't a small bezel, it's not like an infinity screen. For the few pounds that it would have cost Asus to actually put a webcam in here, I don't understand why they haven't done that. But that said, this doesn't bother me, and you can easily just get a clip-on webcam on the top if you do want one. Now I mentioned when we were looking around the laptop, we've got speakers underneath, and we've got the two speakers up top. So we're going to just do a quick sound test. So I'm going to move the microphone towards the laptop and stop talking. So they're not the loudest set of speakers that I've used on a laptop, especially after some of the Anywhere M17 and M15 speakers. But the quality is very good. It's nice and clear. There's a little bass. So, you know, I quite enjoy using these speakers, but you will just be whacking the volume up further than you would on other laptops. So we've looked around the laptop. We're going to have a quick look at performance now. Now, I'm not going to go too heavily on the performance in this review, because we will be doing a separate video where we're going to do a deep dive on the performance, and we're also going to do a gameplay video in the next couple of days as well. So we're just going to do some basic benchmarks to see what it is capable of, this little 14-inch machine. So first things first, let's have a quick look in the Armoury crate and show you the different options you've got available when you're actually using the laptop. So the basic profiles we've got is the silent mode, which will really limit the actual performance of the machine. Now the CPU performance still does really well, which we'll see in a second, but the GPU is like capped at about 40 watts. So the GPU performance is really quite poor on the silent mode. Next we have the performance mode. Now this is your default mode that will come in out of the box. It gives you a good mix of CPU and GPU performance with acceptable fan noise. Next we've got turbo mode, which maxes out your CPU and your GPU, but it does get quite a lot louder. And lastly, we have the manual mode, where you can change the wattage on the CPU, the actual GPU, and also your fan speeds. So the first of the tests we completed with this new Ryzen 5800HS processor was Cinebench, because it puts a really good load on all 8 cores of the CPU and maxes it out. Now in silent mode, with just the CPU, we got a score of 3,928. Now this is an absolutely amazing score, and this is on the silent profile. Now in the performance mode, where it lets the CPU sort of run free, we get 4,759. Now to put this into perspective, my Area 51M with a desktop 10,700 CPU in it, which is 8 cores and 16 threads, scores the same as this tiny little 14-inch laptop with a 5800 HS. So it shows you how much performance these 7nm Ryzen chips have got. And lastly, I'm going to look at the turbo mode where it maxes out the CPU, it makes it a little bit louder, and that gives you a score of 4,816. So these are some brilliant scores, and that is actually faster than my Area 51M. So a package the size of this 14-inch laptop is actually more powerful than a desktop 10,700. That really is quite incredible. I want to just quickly show you Geekbench on the CPU scores. Because this is such a short test, it doesn't really matter which profile I put it in. So the single core score is 1,373 and the multi-core score is 7,247. So these again are really impressive scores and are again on par with a 10,700 desktop CPU that I've got in my Area 51M R2. Really impressive in this form factor. So I completed the OpenCL on the Vega graphics card that comes on board with the 5800, and we get a score of 16,660, which for an integrated GPU is really quite impressive. And the 3060 on performance mode scores 79,467 in OpenCL. A little bit underwhelmed by this. This is very similar to what a 2060 would be scoring, and the biggest problem you've got is on this 14-inch, the TGP is 60 plus boost on the sort of the maximum mode. So the scores aren't as good as something like an Alienware where they're going to give you 115 watts. We'll have a quick look at some 3D benchmarks in the performance mode, which is the default mode it comes in out of the box, just purely because we are going to look in more depth in the next video. So the time spy score is 6,869 with a graphics score of 6,624. Now again, these aren't amazing scores. If you put it into the turbo mode, it will be louder and it will score higher. We're going to look at that in the next video. But this is quite underwhelming on the GPU side of it. It's very similar to a low TGP 2060. And then Firestrike, we got a graphics score of 15,718. Which again, for a 3000 series card, I did kind of expect better. And I have to sort of put my performance expectations in check because this is a tiny 14-inch laptop. I'll be interested to test a 3060 with a much higher TGP because you can go from a 60 watt in something like this right up to 115 watt in a larger sort of chassis or a laptop with better cooling. So this is the absolute lowest end of the 3060. So these are good scores for the size of the machine this is in. And lastly, for the benchmark, we completed Shadow of the Tomb Raider in the highest settings, and we got an average frames per second of 79. So that's not a bad score, considering this is the highest settings on Tomb Raider at 1080p. And again, this is in performance mode, so you will get more performance if you whack it up into that turbo boost, and that is something that we will be looking into. Okay, so we're playing Call of Duty Warzone. Now this is in the performance profile, which is pretty much the default. So your GPU is capped at about 60 watts and the fan noise isn't too bad at all. We're going to just literally go through a game and I'm going to see how hot it gets, how loud the fan is and how hot the keyboard is. Okay, so I've been playing Warzone for a little while now. You can see the GPU temperatures has increased to about 83 centigrade. So that is quite hot for a gaming laptop, but this is only a tiny 14-inch. But I think most of the reason that is, it is actually running quite quietly. So I'm going to use my decibel meter and we can see what it is running at. So that's 48 to 49 decibels on this mode, so it is quite pleasant. It's not bothersome at all. Now if we put it into turbo mode, it'll give us a higher GPU wattage, but it will also pump the actual fan noise up as well. So we will be doing a gameplay and a performance deep dive video coming shortly, and we're going to look at that in those videos. But on this default performance mode, this is comfortable playing without headphones on. And the performance is still pretty good, really. This is high settings in Warzone, and we're looking at between 70 and 80 frames per second most of the time. Also, the keyboard, over the WASD keys, it's only warm. It is hot over the right-hand side of the keyboard. I guess that's obviously where the GPU is. That is actually hot to the touch, but the WASD keys are fine. So, you know, if you are playing with this for a while, I don't think you have any problems. Now I'm used to using 7-inch gaming laptops because I like the biggest screen possible when I'm gaming on a laptop. Obviously this is the first time I've really gamed properly on a 14-inch laptop, and to be fair, if you're sort of leaning into the screen, it's not too bad at all. I still would personally prefer a 17-inch for myself, but if you're looking for portability and to still be able to play games, this seems like an absolutely great option. So now let's talk about the actual battery life. So streaming YouTube music over wireless on 50% brightness and 50% speaker volume, we got over 10.5 hours of battery life. So that's pretty incredible. Definitely up there with the best Ultrabook laptops, let alone sort of like gaming laptops. So this is really good. You can work away from mains for quite a while. Also, you get a 180 watt power adapter that's quite compact. Looks very much like a Razer brick, but a bit smaller with just a barrel plug. Nice and easy to throw in your bag to actually do power if you do need it for more than just battery life. And also, you can use USB-C power delivery up to 100 watts as well to keep this laptop going. Now we will be testing the battery in more depth in the coming days. We'll do some more videos on this laptop, but just from initial use, that's really quite impressive. Okay, so this is the conclusion of this laptop. Now whenever you buy a laptop, there's always going to be compromises to be made. There's no one laptop that's going to suit everybody out there. So if you're looking for a portable gaming laptop at 14 inches, there's really not much choice. So there are some negatives with this laptop. There's no webcam. I'm not 100% keen on the port layout, the fact that they're shifted to the front and the fact there's no USB on the left-hand side, they're all on the right. Again, this could just be me, but this is one of the little annoyances I have when I'm using it on a day-to-day basis. And the screen isn't the best. It's a 144 Hz panel, but there is a little bit of ghosting. I guess it's probably because there's not a lot of choice in this 14-inch market space. But if you can overcome those small annoyances, what you're getting is an incredibly powerful 14-inch laptop that blows anything else in this sort of size range out of the water. The 5800H AMD Ryzen CPU in here is as powerful as a desktop 10700 that's in my Area 51M-R2 laptop. That's no mean feat. My Area 51M-R2 is a huge hulking 17-inch laptop that's about 2 inches thick. It's massive. So to do that in a thin and light, tiny 14-inch laptop is really impressive. Now the 3060 is a little bit underwhelming. It's only 60 watts plus boost if you put it in turbo mode. So 60 watts on performance, 60 plus boost in turbo mode. But in all honesty, at the 1080p resolution on this screen, you're still going to be driving high frames per second in most AAA titles still. So it's a good combination with a powerful CPU and this GPU in this 14-inch laptop. I don't think this laptop's for everybody. I think you've got to want the portability to buy this laptop. If you're not bothered about portability, I would definitely recommend getting a more powerful 15-inch or 17-inch laptop. But for a compact laptop in the 13 or 14-inch space, this is by far and away the best option. Now, gaming aside, this is also a very solid package. It's got a great keyboard that's really nice to type on. The touchpad, although not the biggest, is responsive and the gestures work well. The speakers are good. And it's a really solid, compact, great chassis. Also, you've got one RAM stick you can upgrade and you can change the SSD if you need to in the future. But with a 1 terabyte on board and 16 gigabytes of RAM, I don't think many people are going to need to do that. So all in all, at £1,600 in the UK, it is quite expensive, but it's more of a niche product. It is the most powerful 14-inch laptop I've ever used, and I've absolutely enjoyed my time with it. Now we will be doing more videos on this over the next few days, so please like and subscribe and hit the notification bells if you'd like to see those. And lastly, thank you for watching.